The bed? Okay, I think everybody's sorted now. So first of all, welcome, very welcome, guys. My name is Renier Low, and welcome from the most southern tip of Africa, Cape Agulhas. I think today it's Mandela Day, 18th of July, Mandela's birthday, and I'm pretty sure we are in unprecedented times. I think once we think about the legacy of Mandela, we have different views, and especially what's been happening in the country these couple of weeks. I think we have a lot to ask of ourselves as South Africans. And that is why the Cape Agulhas Youth Council decided to host a youth dialogue to try and make sense of what's happening in the country. Are we living up to the legacy of Mandela or the late Tata Madiba, as many know him? You know, what are we doing to this legacy? And some of us might be celebrating the 67 minutes for Madiba by doing something for the community, as many of us used to do before the pandemic hit us. But now, you know, it's unprecedented times. And I think in one of his quotes, he actually said that he's not a messiah and that he was just an ordinary man who had become a leader. We are extraordinary circumstances. And that is why we're having this conversation today. Is our democracy in crisis? And what do we as young people need to do about it in order to ensure that we to live up to the legacy of Nelson Mandela, or to see what we can do as young people to change the narrative or the direction that the country is taken. And today we have four special guests, from across South Africa. Firstly, we have Shade Williams, who is the chairperson of the Cape Agulhas Youth Council, a strong but soft-spoken leader who wants to lead the young people in Cape Agulhas. She's also a student studying to become a teacher, hoping to change the lives of the young people through education. So very welcome, Shade. Then we also have Adrian Kearns from Open Up. It's a civic organization that deals with technology, and basically the organization, it's about how do we bridge the community in government by using technology. And they've been working in the Cape Agulhas area, I think, since late in 2017, early 2018, and they've been doing amazing things in this area. And then we also have Keenan Simons. Keenan Simons is he's a youth activist from the Cape Agulhas area. Keenan is very active on social media. It's a staunch critic of a lot of what the government is doing, and we invited him also to share some of his views. And our last panelist is Prince Charles, a personal friend of mine. Prince is a writer, he's a political commentator, he's also an activator from the program Activate Change Drivers. I myself is part of the network. It's more than 4,200 young people that is part of the network. And some of you guys might have heard or read about Prince. His name is Prince Charles, not related to Prince Charles from Britain. I know they make jokes of his name a lot. So very, very welcome. Please go and check out some of the work that Prince has written, I think, in the BIS community. And we invited him here from just to give some insight in terms of where we are currently. So a warm welcome to everyone, and I hope you guys at home will be listening and joining the conversation. Please note that the conversation will be streamed live on the Cape Agulhas Municipal Facebook page, as well as the Cape Agulhas YouTube page live. So please go and check it out. The Facebook page, Cape Agulhas Municipal Facebook page, as well as the YouTube page of the Cape Agulhas Municipality. So guys, just a few ground rules. Please, if you are in the meeting, all microphones must be muted and all videos must be kept on during the conversation, because it's like talking to empty chairs if you don't see the videos, and it's a little bit difficult. So please keep the videos on. Question may be asked from panelists to other panelists, and as well from our guests and our viewers at home. Please, guys, I know we have a lot to say and to talk about what's happening. So please keep the comments clean. Keep it short. And if you have a question, please write the name to who the question is directed. If it's a comment, just state that it is a comment, a general comment that you are making. So I think I've covered that part. I will now hand over to our Deputy Chairperson, Lorenzo Hendricks from Struisbaai, to do the official welcoming and opening. Over to you, Lorenzo. I think we just have a little bit of a delay. Lorenzo, just let me know if you are ready.
Okay, Ranier, I'm ready. Okay, guys, good day, everyone, and welcome to our Democracy in Crisis webinar today. I'd like to welcome all of you guys present here today to this webinar. Especially a special shout out to our panelists, Shadai Williams from the Cape Agulhas Municipal Youth Council. She's also the chairperson. Adrian Kearns, the project manager from Open Up. Keenan Simons, he's also a project team member and a Cape Agulhas youth activist. And then we have Prince Charles, an active change driver and a political commentator. We'd also like to thank the municipality and all the parties who made this webinar present in these difficult times as we commemorate a very special person. I believe in all of our, who has played a very, very fundamental role in all of our lives. So I'd like all of you to join in, make sure that your voice is heard. This kind of platforms is created so that young people, not only in Cape Agulhas or in specific towns within Cape Agulhas, but whereas the whole of South Africa needs to benefit. So this is actually like a call out to the youth to ensure that your voices are heard and never be quiet, because Nelson Mandela was a great man. We all know what he stood for, what he fought for, and this is just about what we think that how he feels about the current situation that, or the turmoil that our country is currently in. And as I said, I'm Lorenzo Hendricks. I'm the deputy chairperson of the Cape Agulhas Municipal Youth Council. I'd like you all to join in this conversation today and just use this platform to get your voices out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, for that beautiful introduction and also the welcoming. We will now almost start with our panel discussion. But before I start, just to add some context to democracy in crisis, there are some underlying factors that we just need to mention, and also to the panelists, and I think it will help them with the discussions and the arguments that we'll be making today. Firstly, the World Bank reported that in South Africa, 20% of the population owns almost 70% of all the resources in South Africa. That is not our statistics. That is what the World Bank says. In the current quarter, more than 30% of people in South Africa is unemployed. And that number is it's more than 40% for young people. I don't know if you guys have seen in the last couple of weeks, since May, a couple of months, inflation has been soaring. Prices has skyrocketed. Fuel has went up massively. Food prices skyrocketed. With the current crisis, especially in parts of the provinces of South Africa, in terms of the KZN, Gauteng, we see there are certain food shortages. We see in terms of people are lining up to get food because of the looting and that has happened. So these are just some of the issues that we need to think about, especially also for our listeners at home. When we think about democracy in crisis, there are a range of other things, and I don't want to add on. I don't want to just give my view, but I think that's why we invited our panelists to talk more in depth about the current situation. So without any further ado, I will now hand over to Shadai Williams to give some input on the topic democracy in crisis. Shadai, over to you. would just like to apologize. We do have a little bit of a delay because our two guests, Shade and Lorenzo, they are signing in from Struisbaai, and we have a slight little delay in the signal. So just bear with them. Thank you very much. Shade, can you just unmute yourself? Sorry, Shade, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. I think while they are currently busy just sorting out their challenge, Adrian, can I ask that we maybe start with you, and once they sorted it out, then we can go back to Shade in Struisbaai. Is that okay with you?
Neil, quickly.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Awesome.
Yes, we can hear you. I think Adrian, you can go, and then after Shade, after you, then Shade can go.
Okay. Just give me a second. Good morning, everyone. Oh, good afternoon, sorry. And just to thank the Cape Agulhas Youth Council for affording me this opportunity. Oh, crap, just give me a second. I signed this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Adrian? We do apologize. I see we might be lagging a little bit. Just bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. You may go ahead, Adrian. Adrian? Are you there? Seems like Adrian is also having some technical difficulties. Adrian, I think what we need to do then, I think, Prince, you are trying to say something.
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you there? Yes, you can talk.
Okay.
For some reason, everything...
Jammer, maar ik weet nog glad niet wat gebeurt. Okay, let me just get started.
Renier?
Hi.
Can you me horen?
Yes, can you hear?
Oké, kan ik maar gaan dan?
I think you can go. Yes, you sorted now. Adrian, I think they can go now. She said she sorted the technical issue.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, afternoon everybody. Firstly, I want to start by acknowledging this day with a quote from Barack Obama. Ubuntu, a word that captures Madimba's greatest gift, is recognition that we are all born together in ways that are invisible to eye. Ranir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can go ahead.
That there is oneness to humanity, that we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. We not only embodied Ubuntu, but he also taught us to find the truth within ourselves. Today is International Nelson Mandela Day. Nelson Mandela fight for freedom, for peace, and for justice in South Africa. Nelson Mandela said, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, if it's an ideal for which I'm prepared to die for." He ended apartheid by bringing peace to the country that was racially divided. Nelson Mandela lived by his legacy. He didn't give up his people. He was dedicated to sacrifice all of us. He said, and I quote, "Your freedom and mine cannot be separated." Today we commemorate Nelson Mandela in the 67 years when he campaigned for human rights in South Africa. Today and every we should dedicate 67 minutes of our time to give back and make the world a better place. Tata Madiba, father of our democracy, father of our nation, long lives your legacy. There's a lot of challenges in South Africa currently. The coronavirus pandemic that is all over the world. People are emotionally and physically affected by this pandemic. Many lost their jobs. Students are stressing and frustrated with studies and the amount of work that must be done. Our people have lost hope and are set back because of the pandemic. South Africa is currently in the third wave of the corona pandemic, and the COVID-19 cases are still rising, which has a huge impact on the economic of our country. For the past week, we have seen and heard about the riots in Gauteng and KZN, where people were looting malls, setting buildings on fire. 212 people died during this riot. These riots brought racial tensions between people, especially on social media. It was encouraged on social media. People made racial stereotypes and discriminate. The human rights of people are being violated. As I mentioned, the number of people who during riots.
Thank you very much.
I know.
Shade, sorry, we just had a glitch there. Are you still busy? Are you done?
I know there is still injustice when it comes to our constitutional rights. When we look at our own communities, the Constitution of South Africa, Chapter 2, Bill of Rights, equality. Are we really equal, or are some more equal? Freedom and security of all persons, to be free from all forms of violence from neither public or private source. Today we are reflecting on everything that's happening in our country. We are a strong nation. We are living in a democratic country that Nelson Mandela has fought for. It's the government of the people, by the people, for the people. But we can overcome it and build our communities and our country in a positive and peaceful way. Tata Mandiba encouraged us to love according to the Ubuntu values and left us with a legacy. Let us continue with the legacy and also be responsible citizens. We also see in our communities how people are also standing up and protect under the hashtag Protect South Africa on social media. They are volunteering, cleaning up the streets and malls. So let us also unite and rebuild our towns and implement the Ubuntu values. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Swade. I think there was quite a few things that you mentioned there. I think you mentioned in terms of the mental also stress that people are currently under, students, you know, with the coronavirus, you know, which actually highlighted the long-standing issues that we haven't dealt with within this country. So yeah, there's quite a lot of things that you mentioned there. Thank you very much, and I hope the listeners at home also took some notes. And we'll be asking some questions and we'll be engaging once we get to the question and answer session. I will now go over to Adrian. Adrian, are you ready for us? I think Adrian, is he ready for us? Adrian, just let us know.
Yes, I am. I'm going to leave my camera off just because of the bandwidth, but I'm sure you can hear me very well, right?
Yes, you may go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for that earlier mishap. You know, it's a Sunday, so I'm sure that with the Sunday, the day of rest, my Wi-Fi also took a bit of a rest right there. So I work for firstly, my name is Adrian Kearns, and I work for an organization called Open Up, based in Cape Town. And as Renier said, we are a civic tech organization, and it's quite different to a normal NPO. We make attempts to open information up, data. We try to bridge the gap between citizens and government in terms of communication and access to that information so that decision makers can make informed decisions, and so that it can be a collaborative process. So my pitch this morning or this afternoon is centered around democracy. I mean, we celebrating the great work Nelson Mandela did to give us this opportunity to live in a democratic country, but it means something. So what is democracy? I think that's the main thing we need to reaffirm ourselves to. What is democracy? Because a lot has happened over the last, I would say, 30 years, and there might be a distortion to what we think democracy is and how things have played out over those 30 years. So democracy is when citizens can expect the government to do things for them, like providing protection, health services, education, housing, and citizens have the responsibilities like obeying the laws of this country and paying taxes to the state. So as you can hear, there's a two-way thing to this. Government has to provide services, but citizens are also responsible for obeying the law and paying taxes. Democracy is about balancing the rights of the majority with the protection of the minority. As you will see in terms of our elections, the majority party that people vote for most, they come into power and they lead the country for a period of time. But this does not exclude other parties that are represented and small minority groups that have voted for those parties in a democratic state. So democracy is about achieving a great balance in society so that there's a greater equality for all over a period of time. And I think this is where the problem is right now in South Africa. Because of our history, there's a level of inequality and poverty as a result of the previous system, which we know as apartheid. So as much as we live in a democratic state, achieving that greater balance among society has shown itself to be quite difficult. So what's been in the news? I think that's something that I think this is why this conversation is so important, is that in terms of the news, the Constitution guarantees the independence, and the Constitution forms part of a democratic state, forms the independence of the courts establishes in South Africa 6 main independent institutions to protect our citizens. And we know the Public Protector is one of them, the Human Rights Commission, the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Minorities, the Gender Equality Commission, and then we all know the Auditor General, and last but not least, the Independent Electoral Commission, which results in us having free and fair elections. So this was not in the under apartheid, this was not a representation or existent in the South African government. So yeah, as I said, as a citizen, and I think this is important, we quite, like in South Africa, we are quite aware of the challenges our government faces in terms of delivering services. But as we've seen over the last week in terms of the looting and stuff, we need to remind ourselves as citizens what we are responsible for. And we are responsible for obeying the laws of our country and ensuring others also obey the laws and contributing so that everyone can make South Africa a greater country. So my thinking process was, when I was tasked to present or provide some insight, was how do we look at democracy and public participation, because that's as open up, that's one of the key things that we look to in terms of our civic tech tools. So just in terms of democracy and in terms of public participation, and specifically government in terms of public participation is supposed to look at the will of the people. And I think that is the important thing. You look at our voting system, generally the majority of people vote for a particular party that has the particular interest that the general public is after. Say, for example, Party X is about economic development, and the majority of South Africans feel that is what they'll go for, that is what they will vote for. So it's the will of the people. That's the assumption when they vote. Our constitution says that there must be public participation, what goes on at Parliament as well. And I think this is what people don't know, is that besides the fact that you vote, your democratic right is also to participate in the affairs of Parliament. You have the right to attend the meetings of parliamentary committees, the sittings of National Assembly, and the sittings of the National Council of Provinces. So this is just the various political hierarchies in terms of our democratic state. Bringing it closer to the people is obviously local government. And we know that municipalities provide public participation processes in terms of the IDP budget and other planning instruments. And if you look at this Municipal Systems Act, Chapter 4, a whole chapter is spent just on ensuring that communities are engaged and they participate in the affairs of local government. So there's already enough to say that the democratic state wants communities to participate in the affairs of government. You have the right to contact any MP or parliamentary committee to tell them what you think, what an issue is, and you can discuss it with them. And similarly with your ward councillor at the local government level, you have every right to engage, because this is a democratic state, with your political office bearer. And then last but not least, I think Parliament has a duty to take the views of the public into account. And we've seen this with various bills that gets sent around to various countries, like the land expropriation or changing in policy. The Parliament has to ensure that there is an opportunity for our citizens to engage and give their views, and they should take that into account. The question really is, how do we know as citizens that our government is taking our submissions and all of those into account when drafting or when implementing a bill? So I wanted to bring it to us as Open Up. We data-driven, and what we try to do is we try to provide the necessary innovation so that municipalities, citizens, local government, national government, provincial government, any entity of state have the data to make informed decisions, but also importantly, so that citizens can engage with the municipality or a provincial department or a national department, having that data at hand so that they come with an informed submission or an informed view of something that they feel is important to them. So in terms of data-driven decision-making, a government must find the results they seek more often through citizen engagement, data-driven decision-making, and collaboration. And I think as we've seen over a period of time, citizens feel, and this is just my views, in terms of if you're looking at the protests and even the the things that have happened over the last week. Citizens have become frustrated, feeling that our decision makers are making decisions without including them or without taking their engagement into account. And there is no collaborative process right now. So that is the biggest challenge, bringing all three things together. It's the decision maker, the citizen, and then also the opportunity for collaboration between those two. Data must be accessible to both decision makers in government, as I said, and as also the citizens. A good example I just want to say is a citizen wants to know why a skateboard park has been built in Nova Park. So they want to know who made the decision, when was this public meeting held, so that the community actually gave input into it. So it's those kind of things. Citizens don't want to be the reactionary person or the reactionary stakeholder to already see a project being implemented and not having been consulted on, is this project going to be beneficial to our community? Do we really want this? That kind of thing. Citizens have become more informed, more empowered, and they need to become more informed and empowered and active citizens. The responsibility of government is to be responsive to citizens. And our principles at Open Up is to inform citizens, to empower citizens, and to activate citizens. But what we've added in recently is the responsiveness. So we are looking at how do you get government to respond to the needs of a particular ward or to respond to the needs of a particular province in terms of the provincial government. And I'm talking a lot, guys. Linnea shouldn't have given me this platform. So I just wanted to give us an example of some tool that we work on to help young people engage with government more effectively. So this is an online tool called Youth Explorer, and it basically takes all the data within a particular geography or geographical space, and it presents it on a map. So you'll see as point data, for example, here, and you can see where the public health facilities are, where basic education offices are, police services, etc. And this is quite important because as a young person, firstly, you want to know what's happening in your community and what's happening in your area that can help assist you, maybe get a job, assist you in terms of the basic services that I mentioned that government should provide you. And by seeing this, you can actually articulate better or engage your government better, because you can say, I stay in the Northern Cape, for an example, and if I look at the rest of the country, we have the least public health facilities in our province. Can you please elaborate why this is so? So this kind of data is very helpful for a citizen then to attend a public meeting or go to that or make a submission to the National Assembly or to the National Council of Provinces. And this is just a bit further. The Youth Explorer has data on living environment, like who has access to basic services, internet access. One of the biggest things that we've experienced as Open Up in the last year with COVID-19 is that our young people or in rural communities, young people or people in general are struggling to access information because there's no adequate connectivity, especially in very rural, remote areas. And this is actually resulted in them being completely isolated from what's happening in the country. Just the context, 10.5 million people are between the ages of 15 and 24. And in terms of that, just demographic grouping, 55% of them have access to internet via their cell phone. So that's quite a big amount if we think about it, how the government or how citizens and government can engage is basically through the internet, through their cell phones. And just lastly, data is the new raw material of the digital age. I mean, we've spoken about, there's a lot of hype around the fourth industrial revolution. And basically what that means is that we need to have information at hand as citizens and as government so that we can make the correct decisions faster and not be reactive to situations like the looting that happened this week, or like fees must fall, or any other situation, housing, etc. The decision makers and citizens need to have the information so that they can proactively find solutions to the problems. Some of the solutions we found in terms of specifically a democratic country that the barriers that's creating the process of people not being able to access information or access services. And we feel that some of the solutions is skills building, especially in the rural communities, promoting data and computer literacy, easier platforms for public participation through technology. COVID-19 has hit us with a big bang, and most municipalities and even government cannot do things the way they used to do. And increasing the policy around open government. A lot of information is out there, But unfortunately, our citizens don't have access to it because the information is not understandable to our communities. And just because of that very thing, they are excluded from decision making. So yeah, in ending, that's me. I hope it's been informative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Adrian, for that comprehensive presentation, also input. And it's very important just to highlight some of the things there is the responsibility in terms of personal responsibility, and also what is the responsibility of government. And you also mentioned that a lot of people are excluded from the decision making, and that is why we see a lot of the protest and these type of things happening, because people are not part of the processes. And I like the quote there at the end. Data is the new raw material of the digital age. And I would definitely encourage the listeners and the viewers to please go check out Youth Explorer. If you understand data, then you can make better decisions. Also, if you are in community, you're doing projects, then you know exactly in terms of what do you need to do to address a certain issue in your community, in the country. So that's a very, very great tool there. And thank you very much to open up for sharing that information. And if you want to know a little bit more about Open Up and the work that they do, you are welcome to contact Adrian Kearns or just go to the website Open Up. So thank you very much, Adrian. We will now go over to Keenan Simons from Bredasdorp, and just to give his input on the topic, democracy in crisis.
Hi guys, yeah, as you know, I'm Keenan Simons, and I found a quote of Nelson Mandela as he was. I found a quote. The quote says, "As I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." Now, with this, I want to open what I would like to say in this essence of Mandela Day. If we as a nation, if we as a youth are not going to stop and sit and think to what is freedom, I'm so lucky that Adrian already said everything about democracy that people need to know, so I do not need to touch on it. If we as a nation are not going to become open to the reality of freedom, and we are going to allow people to manipulate us to think that it is okay to riot, it is okay to loot because this belongs to us. We as a country in 1995, I remember it very clearly when we had the Rugby World Cup. For the first time in my life, I saw a country come together through adversity. I saw not only white, I saw not only black, I saw not only colored people jump to the roof when a ball went over through the uprights. When Nelson Mandela held that William Webb Ellis trophy in 1995, it was a great moment for our country, because for the first time in our democracy, we were united. And yet again, today, through all the adversity that we are going through, as we take it from the pandemic, we have been starting to unite slowly but surely. If I look at what is happening in KwaZulu-Natal, if I look at what's happening in Gauteng, people have started to unite again. Even through the adversity of what is going on, we as a nation, we have started to unite in the greater good, to help. And this is what we as South Africans are. So this is what I want to tell the youth. The same thing as, or not the same thing, the same quote I'm going to use that our deputy mayor said at the youth summit. She said something very profound, very necessary, and that is to our youth to take up your space. Now, we as youth need to start taking up our space. We need to stop letting people tell us, listen here, you are not able to do that. Here you've heard from Adrian Kearns which is the right channels to go through as you want to go through your processes to address local government, to address even national You understand? These are things that we need to know, because if we do not know the certain channels that we are walking through, how will we ever get to the place where we need to be as a nation? Now, the happenings that has happened from when this COVID started, it has plummeted our entire economy. Now, with this said, the looting, the burning, how many international investors has climbed out of South Africa just for the moment to say, well, let South Africa have its moment. We are going to stand back. This is why our rand is yet again plummeting. Our petrol is going up, so our food is going up again. You understand? This is the chain reaction that happens when a nation starts going the wrong way. So we as South Africa, we need to start uniting all our fronts, economically, socially. We need to start uniting in a sense that we need to do this together. We can become a great country only, and I say only, if we stand together. I will look at the likes of other countries, first world countries, and I would think, oh, South Africa has the potential to do this. We as a youth have the potential to get there. You understand? But it speaks to the mindset of our people. So the youth today in Cape Agulhas region, I will urge you and I will ask you, please free your mind. If you are going to allow people to manipulate you, yet again, what is going to happen is you are going to be imprisoned by another person. Free your mind and take up your space within the society today. Understand? Lastly, I would like to end off with a letter from a fellow Zimbabwean who is staying in our country today. And just to give a heads up, this is a process which has caused Zimbabwe its great fall as a result of people doing things out of own gain, money hungry, power hungry people. So I'm going to end off with this letter from a Zimbabwean just to state the case. My fellow South Africans, do not be fooled. Do not be used. We were once fooled in Zimbabwe and were made to loot farms, destroy our infrastructures, burn down our industries, and made our country ungovernable. All in the name of selfish politicians, individuals who have nothing but their own interest at heart. Yes, we looted groceries that lasted us just a week or a month. And look at us now. We are now a basket case, while those politicians' children are dining and whining abroad. We burnt our factories, our industries, where our fathers and brothers worked, that allowed us to go to school. Now we are nothing but gardeners, waiters, and vendors. We looted productive farms and burned down machinery that provided enough food, not just for us, but for the entire region. Now we're crossing borders just to get basic foods. We were made to run around singing and chanting their names day and night while they were busy planning for their future. We burnt each other's houses and homes while they built high walls around their mansions. Now we are renting shacks and back rooms in foreign countries. We killed each other for no reason. We destroyed our own country, our future. For old people who had achieved and lived their lives. Most of them are dead now. Even yet, we remain with no future. We are now a laughing stock. We are now labeled refugees, asylum seekers, and many other painful names. We are scattered all over the world, separated from our families and loved ones. The so-called heroes who used us are nowhere to help us. My fellow South Africans, I wish I could be given the platform to warn you how this all will end. Don't be fooled. Don't be used. Because tomorrow, you will be left in the cold. So with this said, this really takes me back. Really takes me back that what happened to Zimbabwe. Because if we are not going to stand one as a nation, if we are not going to stand one as a youth, I don't think we will ever get to where we as South Africa know we can be. So today, I will end this off by saying what Deputy Mayor said: take up your space. Guys, we need to take up our space. And yeah, that is it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Keenan. I think it's very important things that you raised there. I think you called that we, as South Africans, need to come together and unite. And I think you also mentioned that we need to also learn from other countries and the mistakes that some of them has made, and to ensure that we don't repeat certain mistakes. And yeah, I think, you know, it's you guys have highlighted some very, very important things that we need to think about. And also to our listeners, if you just joined us, we are currently busy with our youth dialogue, Democracy in Crisis, and we just talking about the legacy of Mandela, thinking about what's happening in the country, reflecting in terms of what is happening to our democracy, what do we need to do to save it, if it needs saving. And so we have Shade Williams and also Adrian Kearns, Keenan Simons, and Prince Charles that joined the discussion. And we will now go over to Prince Charles. He's the only one that is not from, Adrian is not from the Cape Agulhas. He is from the Eastern Cape. I know he's very involved with government work. I'm not pretty sure what Prince actually does, because he's got so many titles. I know he's a humanist, he's post-religious, I think he said he's an African socialist. I think you and I need to talk about, you know, especially that term, you know, talk a little bit about ideology and so on. So you've heard from Keenan. Are we going towards Zimbabwe, Prince? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Renin. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope I'm audible enough. I think, first of all, I'm so impressed by the youth of Cape Agulhas. You know, it is the small little things like this that are so important, that show that our country has a future. While people are doing all the different types of work around honoring Nelson Mandela, I know in our country we've got a problem that young people say we are always talking. We're always having these talk shops. But, you know, these things are important, because in as much as we want implementation and all of those things to happen, we must always refine and discuss. That is in essence how we are going to refine where the future of our country is going, whether our country is going in the direction that we want. So I appreciate, thank you very much, guys, for doing this. I've never seen, I interact with young people a lot. I know there've been webinars, there've been discussions. I've never had this kind of discussion being organized by a youth council. And you have a municipality also streaming it. So I'm sure, I don't know your municipality. I've been to Cape Agulhas and Bredasdorp. I'm sure maybe perhaps that you guys might disagree, because you know the municipality is working, or you say it's not working. But I think it shows that a little bit, there is a bit of political will if the municipality wants also to be part of discussions like this. So it's a very good start that you guys have. Please keep it up and make sure we build partnerships with other youth organizations as well, because you are going to learn what you guys are doing. I'm learning something from what you guys are saying now. And I'm thinking, yet I've got my own municipality who are doing separate things in the other side. Perhaps if we can join up as youth councils and see what we can do from different provinces, different approaches, different understandings. That's very, very good. It's particularly if you've got a municipality that has the political will. The politicians are there, they listen. You might not agree with them, but they've got the will is there to work together. So thank you very much for that. We are in the era of COVID-19. I see everybody's wearing their mask. My mask is right here. I'm all alone in this house, so I didn't put on a mask. So I appreciate that. I see Lorenzo have had their mask ever since the entire thing has started. So I big up to that for the regulation. I see Renil is drinking. I think that's ginger, whatever he's drinking there in a cup. Renil. Hopefully it's not alcohol because alcohol is closed. But yeah, those who need to get vaccinated, please, guys, go and get vaccinated. I know there's the debate around the vaccine. Is it working? Is it killing people? Yeah, I'm a supporter of the vaccine, and I think for the future of our communities, we must make sure that people do get vaccinated so that the COVID pandemic doesn't kill our future, so that we can get back as a country to normality in a as quick as possible. So thank you very much. Politically, for mine would be to say, I've been listening to the discussions. I listened to Shade. I listen very carefully to people when they're talking. I appreciate the levels of discussions that we've had. The title is Our Democracy in Crisis. Democracy, how we view democracy, first of all. We are in crisis. We've always been in crisis. It's not a matter of is our democracy in crisis. Democracy was invented to manage the crisis that we have. So it's not a matter of is it in crisis. We have always been in crisis. If you have 74% young people unemployed, it could have been something else if you said the young people do not want to work. You've got a young force of people who want employment, but they can't get it. That is a crisis. And, you've got 3 million young people. I don't know if you guys follow the Stats SA. There are 3 million young people, 3.3 million, it's gone up actually, in this country, who are not in employment, not in education, employment, or training. It's called NEET, N-E-E-T, not in employment, education. And you ask yourself, if you've got 3 million young people in this country who are not in employment, where are they? What are they doing? If they're not in employment, they're not in education, they're not in training, what are they doing? So by allowing that kind of situation to carry on, you are in fact, as a country, building a lost generation. So is our democracy in crisis? Our democracy has always been in crisis. The question is the democracy managing the crisis? Is our democracy managing the crisis? I was listening to Adrian explaining. So in democracy, there are two types of democracy. One type of democracy is called substantive democracy. That is is the democracy that you have giving people the services that they need. And you have procedural democracy that says every 5 years you must have elections, you must have political parties, those two. So as South Africa, we've been very good at the procedural democracy where we say, yes, every 5 years, we tick that box, we do go to the elections. We've got political parties, we can campaign. But the question is our democracy functioning in the benefit or in the benefit of those people who are governed? Are people getting the value out of this democracy? Those are the discussions that we need to look at deeply. And we need to challenge our politicians to make sure, are they doing this, particularly local government? In South Africa, we've got this thing of, what is the president going to say? We are preoccupied with political principles at a higher level. Local government is what we as young people need to challenge head on, because it is what kills the hope of young people. It's not the grand corruption of 500 billion that has been stolen. It is the small little things that in my community, the pipes are broken right in my doorstep. It is the small little things that kill the hope of young people in this country. And it's not sometimes, I'm not promoting corruption, but it's not grand corruption that demoralizes us as young people. We want jobs, we want licenses in order to get. I do not have a driver's license because I don't want to bribe people to get one. So it means then in this country, if I want a driver's license, I must go and get it somewhere else. Because if you're not willing to bribe people to get a driver's license, you will not get one because you need to pay for it. That is not how things should be in our country. And the other issue, I think, it's how we approach politics. Because for democracy to function, they are inherently linked to politics. You need to be involved in politics. Now, we've always viewed politics as party politics. So DA, ANC, good. That's how we view, if you're one of those, then you are in politics. We need to change that as young people. Definitely need to change that, because there's a saying that says, if you're not interested in politics, politics is interested in you. So party politics do not only mean politics. Politics are about the distribution of resources. What we are having now is politics. This is politics, discussions that we are having about Mandela's legacy. And we must talk about Nelson Mandela because his generation, the negotiated settlements that they gave us have landed us where we are. So we must challenge, did Nelson Mandela and his generation do a good job? Yes or no? Fine, we must debate. They sold us out. What are we doing? Did we fail perhaps in holding to account the people? Did we ever follow through? Are we using the constitution to hold those who govern us, to say, is this government or is our municipality, governing in the interest of the governed, which is us? So changing how we view politics. Politics is about, if there's one thing, I've been talking a lot, I know I've got 1 minute left now. If you want to keep what I've said, one thing that you must keep is that politics is about the distribution of resources in our country. It's how they are distributed in our country. And I on the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, we need to stop talking about it as if it's something that we're fighting against. And the 4IR is not about machines, about computers and about devices. It's about people. We need to make sure it's about young people specifically. We need to fight to make sure that we pull back the attention to ensure that when people talk about the fourth industrial revolution, they are talking about young people, because without young people, there's no fourth industrial revolution. So in summing up, giving the political background, what's going on in KZN, Nelson Mandela, South Africa, we've got a fundamental problem. In South Africa, who does South Africa belong to? That's one. The second one is, who has a right to speak about issues in South Africa? Because if poor people sometimes raise these things, we don't listen, we label them. They're looters, they're violence, they're service delivery protests. But if certain people certain bodies raise these things, then they're listened to. And we need, as young people, to ensure that we become participants in our own governance, so that we do not sit there and say the politicians. We need to take back the power from the politicians. We've given them too much power. People are looting. For an example, we wait. Where is the president? Where are the soldiers? Where are we as citizens? Where are we as citizens? These are our schools. These are the same malls that we use, but we have given that right to the politicians. We need to, how do we take back the rights that we have given? Lastly, I think it was Adrian. No, it was not Adrian, who spoke about information. The wars of the future will not only be between the rich and the poor, but they are going to be between those who have access to information and those who don't. Yes, it was Adrian. Those who have access to information and those who do not have access to information. Now the trick is for us as young people to ensure that things function. How do we make sure that these conversations we are having online don't die here? How do we take what is online, we take it offline, and what is offline, we take online? Thank you very much, Renew.
Wow, thank you very much, Prince. That was some thought-provoking stuff that you shared with us there, and I just want to briefly go through some of them. I think you mentioned about the 3.3 million young people that is currently unemployed, and that question is to the viewers as well. Where are these young people? What are they doing? What are they keeping themselves busy with? And I think what's being played right in front of us, I think it answers some of the questions that you are talking there. And also another point that you highlighted was the fact about the different types of democracies. And I didn't even know that we have these type of democracies. The substantive democracy, which is about services and the delivery of services, which is in our everyday communities, and then also the procedural democracy. That is very important because even there, young people are saying, I'm not going to vote. They're all corrupt. Who do I vote for? So I'll rather stay away, and I'm not taking up my space. And I love that you ended off with the fact that it's going to be about who's got the information and who doesn't have the information, because that's currently where we have the have and the haves not, have not. So so the question goes back to the panel now. Are we a failed democracy? That's just the question, and then we will go into some of the comments and to read some of the questions. Maybe from our panelists, are we a failed democracy? What do we need to do to minimize some of the or mitigate some of the risk that we might see occurring in the future? Prince, can I ask you maybe just to respond to that question? Are we? Do you think that we are a failed democracy, or in your view?
As long as you have young people coming together during Mandela Day in Bredasdorp or in Cape Agulhas to discuss this, means that we are not a failed democracy. We would have been a failed democracy if we did not even acknowledge that our democracy is functioning in the interest of the governed. So by the mere fact that you've got young people who say, no, things are not going right here, the fact that it clicks in our minds signifies that we are not a failed democracy.
Thank you very much, Prince, for that. Shade, just a question for you. I think this question comes from Tracy in Streisbach. Would like to hear more of the voices of young women in the issue that affects young women specifically. Maybe you can just share, Shade, what are some of the issues, especially when we're talking about democracy in crisis? What are some of the issues that are affecting you as young women? Sorry, Shade, we can't hear you again. I think, can you guys just take out the earphones, please? Or maybe while they're busy preparing, Adrian, you mentioned some of the solutions that we, you shared some of the solutions on your presentation. But now, how does government go forward? How do we respond to this current crisis? Besides, calling on the army, besides, locking up everyone, how do we respond to what's currently happening? Because it's more than just people calling for free Zuma. I think there were some people generally that were on the cause of free Jacob Zuma, but then there were also people that used this opportunity to loot and to protest because of other issues. So how does government respond to this crisis? Adrian, that one is for you.
Yeah, thanks, Renier. Sorry, I just unmuted myself. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take a step back, and I like what has been said before. The biggest problem that's faced in our democratic state is the poor. I'm gonna just reference it to a basic thing: poor communication. It's a mixture of the haves and have-nots, the inequality we face in our country, because what is communicated at the national level, people at the local level will never know. Even within our local government, the method of communication is so poor. As I said before, people reactionary see a project being started. People reactionary see an opportunity for internships. And then by that time, it's already been earmarked for a certain amount of people. So I think just in terms of the looting and the manner in which our citizens are starting to rise up, we must acknowledge the fact that that is a form of active citizenry. We need to acknowledge that people are frustrated. We need to acknowledge that people have reached the point of an Afrikaans gatvol. So we know that is a method, but the reason why they might be doing it is because the current system of public participation has failed them. So that's why I said in early on, our organization has inform, empower, and activate, right? So that is the citizen responsibility. They need to be informed. They need to be empowered. They need to go to the meetings, and they need to be active citizens. But what if the responsiveness of our government is not there? So that would mean that all the effort of my ward representatives or the people that come to the ward meetings is going to go down the drain. And I think we need to get to a point again where our government looks at the Constitution, looks at why they are there. An MP is elected into Parliament to uphold the Constitution, and upholding the Constitution means upholding the rights of every South African. So if a community is in uproar about housing, you're supposed to go there. You're supposed to know that that's going to happen. And the unfortunate thing about the looting is we should have known this was going to happen. It's been mentioned that the people are hungry. Like last year already in the COVID-19, there was mention of the grant being taken away. People were saying, I'm hungry, we don't have food, we're unemployed. So I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. All I'm saying is our government needs to be proactive in our participation, collaboration and participation with our citizens.
Awesome, thank you very much. So being proactive is very important in terms of how do we address the challenge. Keenan, we are currently in election year. Prince mentioned that young people need to get involved. It's not only about party politics. The water in your tap, that's politics. The holes in your street, it's politics. So when you go around communities and you talk about politics, people say, I'm not interested. I don't want to get involved. Let them do it. What would you say to the young people, especially hearing some of the input that Prince has mentioned in terms of take part in the democracy? So what would you say to these young people?
If I look at our youth or in what situation they find themselves, I would find it very easy for them to say, no, I don't want to be part of politics. Understand? I don't want to be part of a democracy. But in actual fact, if you do not have a ticket, you cannot get on the bus. You cannot have a say. If you don't vote, you will not be able to have a say in the meaning, and you will not be able to govern a better government at the end of the day, and you won't be able to voice your voice. So I think it's very important for the youth today to actually stand up, like the youth stood up against apartheid. Understand? We as a youth need to stand up and say, this is our time, man. You understand? We need to go vote. We need to go establish ground rules. We need to go and sit with mandates. We need to go and do all of these certain things in order for us to create a better future, not only for ourselves, but for the greater good in the Cape Agulhas community. So what I would tell the youth today is, if you know what you want out of this life, and if you know what you want out of your government, make sure that you put your name on that dotted line. Make sure that you make the cross at the right place. Understand, voting is very important because it's your voice that you are voting for. You are not voting for democracy. You're not voting for a party. You are voting for a voice, to have a voice and to have a say. So I want to urge the youth today just to have their say within it. Have their say within this democracy.
Oh, thank you very much. So you have to have your say. Prince, I just want to add this to the conversation as well, and I don't think some of the panelists has touched on it. Historically, especially since the transition of South Africa becoming a democracy, there's been external forces at play. If you look at, we had the Structural Adjustment Program, we had GEAR, we had the RDP, now we have the NDP, and most of these are very neoliberal policies, which is basically saying neoliberalism is private corporate power, leave corporate power alone, have smaller governments. What do you think, how did these neoliberal policies impact what we are currently facing today?
So, okay, one of the you know what the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us is that globalization. So we are becoming a global village. So you might think that the protests are in KZN. Let them loot. They're battling with bread. We've got a shop here in Bredasdorp and Caledon. We still have bread, or we still have fuel. Though what is happening there will not affect us. It's their own problem. So a pandemic in Wuhan in China, someone gets infected, and here you are sitting in Bredasdorp, people are dying of the pandemic. That's how globalization has taught us that we are a connected world. So what is happening to your neighbor, it's no longer saying that it will never affect you. So global politics or global economies dictate the kind of policy that your country will do. So you might sit here and see that rating agencies saying South Africa is in junk status, and you wonder, oh, well, okay, we're in junk, it's got nothing to do with us. They then dictate our policy, because if our country is unable to get investments, and investments don't come for free. Investments come with, unfortunately, the capitalists and the neoliberals dictate policy. And it's one of those things now in politics where you find people like Jacob Zuma, for example, and his group that was there that are pushing for radical economic transformation. What basically they are saying, never mind that you might think it's about corruption or they've used it for corruption, that's a debate of another day. What Jacob Zuma and his people are saying, the structure of this economy in South Africa is structured in a way that it doesn't benefit people who are black and who are poor. It continues to enrich those who are predominantly white, who've got access to resources. It's just empowering them. It's not coming back to ordinary people. Whether they've done that properly, it's fine. But now what global economies do is that once you start speaking like that, you want to change the structures of how economies are. What they will do is, it's what is called politics of power. So there's what's called politics of power and politics of support. So once you start messing around with politics of power, you start trying to shake how the structures of the economies are. What they will do is they will put out their power against you. They'll get the media to say you are corrupt. They'll get rating agencies to rate you down to junk status, so that you lose support and eventually you are in jail. So I'm not saying that is what happened to Jacob Zuma. I'm just saying global politics do not want to be shaken up. They do not want certain bodies, black bodies particularly, to be empowered, or the structures of the economy, because they benefit from the way things are. Status quo enriches certain people, and they want it to stay that way. So it's these neoliberal policies that you've had. This is where now we as young people have the power. As I said before, there are two types of politics. There are politics of power and there are politics of support. Politics of power you can't control, because it depends where your economy is. Are you in South of Africa? Are you far from Europe? Are you far from America? You can't control. But politics of support is what now Keenan was saying about voting. This is where you will dictate who takes the seat of your government to decide, and whether you use that effectively. I think Keenan did say that the ticket, you can't get on the bus without a ticket. In fact, stop the bus altogether if you don't have the ticket instead of trying to get on the bus. So I hope I tried to explain what you were asking about neoliberal policies and how they manage to sort of interfere with our country.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important there, because the reason why I'm asking that question is just to make our viewers think in terms of sometimes when we think about the issues of South Africa, we think about it in isolation to a specific political party, whilst ignoring the issues, the other external issues that also affect the decisions. For an example, a political party might get funded by a certain corporate power. Obviously, If you make an example, if I lend Prince money, 50 Rand, and I say, Prince, you must give me back 60 Rand. That's the conditions under which, our agreement is. And sometimes I think our young people don't also understand, how these things are set up at a global scale. But thank you very much for that one, Prince. I just want to read some of the comments here. I think to add, Tracy Dennis is also from Struisbaai. She's very involved in programs, especially with women. And that she asked in terms of what are young people, young women, what are they doing to take up this space? And this is a response from Shadei. She said, ek dink as dit by vroue kom, is daar baie wat nog in die verlede lewe as gevolg van mans wat domineer en vroue voel nog nie dat hulle gelyk is nie. En ook armoede in ons gemeenskappe speel 'n groot rol waar vroue verkleineer word. And to add on to that, this is what Vanessa also said. Females are still seen as weaker gender, and when they do want to step up, they are being seen as voorbarig or as forward, and all other kinds of ugly words. They do not get 100% support from other females, even if they choose a career over family life, or they get labeled. Females always have to work harder just to get noticed and to have a seat at the table. Does anyone of the panelists maybe want to just add on to that? Shadei, is your mic working? Shadei, maybe just to respond to that? Yes, I think they're still having some issues there. Maybe Kina, Adrian, sorry man, maybe just on the women's issue. Yes, Adrian, you may go.
Yeah, no, that's some valid points there. I think I hope you don't mind me saying this, but just in terms of the representation at this panel, and I'm not saying that there aren't women out there. I think there's still the culture. Remember, our country, South Africa, is an African country filled with culture, and culturally, there's a lot of things that we need to move past. Like I like what is being said about the global economy, but within South Africa, we still follow a very cultural way of doing things, and I think we need to go past that into the realization that we are equal, firstly, and it requires both public and private investment in terms of our females. One looks at specific skills like software development as an example. That's predominantly still male. Engineering, still predominantly male. We're looking at there's various other industries, and I think that is where when it comes to, again, proactive, these are now reactionary. We can see it, but now it should have been 1994. We should have had these, these policies and plans in process. Affirmative action, as an example, it wasn't as effective as we thought it would be. Employment equity wasn't as effective as it should be, and we can deliberate on these policy implementation things around gender equality and around race. In terms of the equality, the 20% of our population having 70% of the wealth. Just in terms of land as well, if you look at the land distribution in our country, it's still the same as it was in apartheid. We're looking at 80% of the population staying in 20% of the land, and what is scary is that our spatial, I'm just moving a bit away from it, our spatial transformation hasn't changed really that much, because our human settlements are still being built in the same framework of apartheid. So our colored communities are still in our colored communities, our black communities are still in our black communities, whereas the whiter communities, they're expanding in, and the value of their land is so high that people of color will never be able to infiltrate that unless there is a level of radical transformation from gender, economy, social, as well as spatial. And that's my case.
Well, quite a lot has been said there, but we have deep-seated inequality still in South Africa. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening. Adrian mentioned in terms of the spatial plans, if you see, especially in local municipalities, it doesn't change. Black people used to live where they lived in post-apartheid era, but now it's a question of who's got the money to move. Prince, how do we as young people, how do we start accumulating wealth? Or what do we want to change society, or do we want to acquire wealth so that we can also build these high fences around us? So what is it that we as young people really want to do? in terms of, when we think about Adrian, what Adrian has said? Maybe just Prince, and then I will go to you, Keenan.
We young people, we need to shake up the entire system if it's not working for us. We outnumber the people who are older than us. I mean, 5 to 1, if I may exaggerate. And most importantly, on the issue of gender, as young people, the struggles of women are intertwined with ours. We should be fighting, in fact, because when women lead, young people benefit, because our struggle and the struggle of women, they are so intertwined. The same exclusion that we suffer is the same exclusion that women are also, are experiencing. On wealth creation, so I'm a socialist, I would say one of the challenges that has brought us here is the accumulation of wealth and profit. So perhaps as young people, we need to shift our minds from the accumulation of wealth and profiteering, and change and have a paradigm shift on where we see the future of our country. Because it is those same type of mentalities of how do we create wealth. People are talking about black tax, how do we create wealth? Perhaps wealth will create itself at the end. We need a stable country first. We need predictable communities, safe communities. Wealth, inadvertently, wealth will come out of the stability of the communities that we have. So profit first, stable community first. We can debate that in terms of development, which one comes first. But I think government, we must push government. What they've done so far is to build houses, but have they built communities is the question. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or it opens up another can of worms.
I think every comment opens up another can of worms, How do we do that? How do we bring communities together, Keenan? Especially since Pope Francis mentioned that, we outnumber the old people. So why are you young people not working together to ensure that we build our own communities? Why are we so complacent?
You see, there's many factors today. In the olden days, when my parents grew up, I'm going to take it from there. There was a work for every person. There was work right around the board. Understand? Everybody had their own income. Today, our youth, we face many adversities as to when it comes to creating something. I just want to touch on this thing of creating wealth. You understand? Everything starts with us. It starts with you first. It doesn't start with anywhere else. Everything starts with you. Building a community starts with one person. It builds from there on out. If you are right within yourself, then only can you expand to a greater good. You understand? If I look at in a global situation, 2% of the entire globe's population owns the world. They own it. They own all the money in the world. They own everything. You understand? So at the end of the day, we need to stray away from that. We need to literally get away from that, and we need to start building a South Africa as a whole. You understand? And we need to start with us first before we can look at anything else, anywhere else. We need to start with us as a nation. We need to start in Cape Agulhas first. You understand? And we need to build it on out from there. Coming into the thing of the gender equality, I just want to touch on that. My census view of this is that there is 2 women for each 1 man sitting in the office. If I look at our situation, 2 women for each man that there is working in an office situation. So I would say you women have come a far way. You have come along. And talking about engineering and things like that, I know women today that are in engineering, and they are doing brilliant for other women. They are raising the bar to say, yes, come study something else, man. It's not necessarily that you just have to do office admin. You see, so there's a broad spectrum when we are speaking about things that we as a nation need to do. Everything starts with us and ourselves. It starts nowhere else. It is the mentality of you. It is how you view things, and we should teach our youth how to view things in a better manner, I think. So that is all from my end.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it all starts with you. It's true what you're saying there. No, we need to take some personal responsibility as well to start building our communities. I just want to read some of the comments. I think there's one comment. I think he wouldn't want his name to be said. He says that those that possesses the wealth currently must accept that their hoarding wealth is not in their best interest either. So, like what Keenan has mentioned about the 2%, owning, I know how many billions, more than a third of the wealth. Just to add on to that as well, we saw this past few weeks, I don't know if you guys have been following, Elon Musk, born South African, I think the founder of Virgin, Jeff Bezos, these are the richest people in the world, going out of space, billions of rands, Do we have claim on that? Can we claim that and say that can you assist the world because you have a lot of money? Others we might argue like these people work hard. You understand, Prince? I'm just gonna throw this question to you again since you are a socialist. What do you think about hoarding these wealth that people are actually accumulating for themselves? And the more they keep for themselves, the more a lot of the communities are getting less and less of the pie. So what do you say about that?
I mean, the creation of wealth in its own. You say the rich work very hard. I don't know who works very hard, women or the rich, you'd ask. The wealth that they own is created by the same communities. So it is us who make that wealth for them. I know there's always this argument about white monopoly capital. It's it's the Ruperts own everything. They own the margarines that we eat and the bottled water that we drink. But the question is, who consumes those things? It is us who consume the same things that we want to do. So it's easy to blame the rich sometimes, but it is us who hold the power to their riches. Because if we say, fine, the Ruperts own everything that we eat, develop our own. Let's develop our own things so that we don't buy from the rich if we feel that the rich, because of their capital or the money that they have, we continue on empowering them in equality. If the inequality is there, how do we change it in order to benefit us as young people? How do we, develop new ideas? How do young people, do we have that space to develop, to say, look, I've designed a cell phone. In this democratic government, we don't even have a new city that we've built, but we've got young people, creative. So we are working, we are building on top of what someone did say that on what apartheid structures have created. What different outcome then will emerge if we are not willing to start anything new? So wealth-wise, that's my view, I think.
Thank you very much for that, Prince. Before we get to Adrian, he mentioned here we shouldn't build structures, but sustained self-reliant human settlements. And then also Vanessa said mindset, lack of education, lack of compassion. We are so caught up in our own little world. We see each other as competition instead of building on each other's strength. That's so true, Vanessa. So true. I think we see that a lot. And I think these things actually escalated in the time of social media, where I think mental health has also brought into question with a lot of these things. But yeah, Adrian, I think I saw your hand.
So yeah, thank you. No, I wanted to add, I think that's a very important comment Prince made about the wealth. And one of the things I think, and I'm talking as the head, Renier and the rest of the team, as a previous public official for 16 years, is that I believe that government should play a pivotal role in stimulating or increasing or this. I like this word radical economic transformation. I like it. I like it a lot. But I think the way it was thrown around, what created a. You weet was in the past apartheid swart gevaar, né? Now they use that same thing in the new dispensation to say this is a radical economic transformation gevaar, but it's not. One of the things we could think about is in terms of, and I'm not a person about wealth, but I'm a person about equality. Everyone must get the equal opportunity to gain in something, whether it's education, whether it's a house, whether it's wealth, whatever the case may be. Government, in terms of policy, one of the things, I know in local government, we have the local economic development strategy. But one of the things that that government hasn't explored to its optimal is procurement, is looking at every opportunity to use procurement, purchasing from our own people. And we see that, I see it in my past experience, where a constructor or a contractor is pulled from Cape Town to work in George. When at some point in time, we should have looked at this thing and said, how do we capacitate our communities so that they can participate in the very economic activities that our government is going to bring in? Because it's not about creating jobs. It's about creating entrepreneurs. It's about, I think somebody also mentioned that it's about creating opportunities within, that's why I said sustainable, self-reliant communities where we don't need a job. We have the skills here to do what we need to do to make our community work. And the problem is we are dependent, like Prince is saying, we are dependent on that margarine. When we now community, we know we have bakers, we have all these economies. I call it there's a word, informal economies, né? That people are doing these things, but because they are being excluded from mainstream economic opportunities, and our own communities aren't also supporting them at the level as they should, because we go to the ShopRite, no offense to ShopRite, and we go there and we buy there. But if we could just look at where is the auntie that's actually making that vet cook, making that bread on a regular basis, and we actually have supported her to advance her livelihood to be not just a subsistence, but to actually be a profit-making thing where she can actually elevate herself in that community. And then she has the house that she wanted for her family. So I think, again, it's twofold. It's about growing our community in a way that it's not reliant on, and that's the thing about wealth distribution. You have to keep the wealth within the community. And the problem is we are dependent on our bigger entities to provide us with the necessary things to live. And that money leaves that community of Bredasdorp. And that is the biggest challenge. How do we keep the money within our communities and then grow that community to such a point where it's like, I like what Prince says, it becomes an international global brand. People remember Bredasdorp as, yo, you should know that auntie that sells that vet cook there, even in Holland.
Thank you very much. It's very true there. I will go. So Prince Charles, you had your hand up?
No, just to agree with what has been said, I totally agree. You know, this is where you need to challenge now the municipality, since it's here. You know what the looting and riot have shown us is that, did you see how taxi drivers became the new defense force? Because the taxi industry is fundamental to people, moving people out of the malls. So once you build a mall, it automatically attracts transport there, and they become part of the value chain. But the surprising thing is that when they build the mall, they never include the taxis as being part of the structure that's there in terms of the value chain. So it's exactly what was just said now, I think what is Adrian, that radical economic, never mind the fact that it's been used now, you know, to be part of corruption, to be aligned to Jacob Zuma and factions of the ANC. But I think a more economic way to call it is it's inclusive growth. Inclusive growth. The municipality, Cape Agulhas, must tell us, out of the people who are in this area, how many young people benefit from the budget that this municipality has? How many young people, how many small SMMEs do you get from here? the caterers that come from here, who do you take as caterers? How much of this budget that we, as the ratepayers in this municipality, what do you plow back to us? And in the event of a municipal election that are coming up, they must actually be pushed by young people. Because if we do not do that, they are not going to change the manner that they function. I mean, there's a road that must be built in Caledon. A construction company in Cape Town is called in. And it's also for us to blame also sometimes as the residents. We do not participate in the parliamentary, municipal structures, community engagement. We never go there. We all know we don't go there sometimes. But then with the moment when houses are built, where does these houses come from? We were not consulted. We will burn them down. We want at a later stage when things have been agreed. Hence, we need to be involved, become active participants in our own governance.
Wow. Thank you very much, Prince. That is so true, yeah. And I agree with the letter that you said, is that a lot of us, I'm taking from experience working in local government, a lot of the young people do not participate in, especially the public participation processes. Whether it's the IDP, whether it's the budgetary process, it has become a sort of a reactionary thing once we see that. And that's when we get riled up. For an example, you would share information on Facebook, or you would invite people to trainings and programs. Nobody responds. But once you see the 2 or 3 people benefiting from that, then you know that type of thing also happens. I just want to go through some of the comments here. The system as it is now is free, meaning everyone has a chance to live in affluence as long as we have access to quality education. But in order to gain quality education, you require capital. So the have-nots are excluded by default. I think that is very clear. And then one of our youth council members said, what is the aims and objectives of government these days? They are failing the youth. 3.3 million young people are without work. So this is due to bad management. I just want to add something, and I think you guys touched on something. I think it was you, Adrian, who talked about the formal economy. Is it maybe because of the fact that we're still used to economies? We have the formal economy that probably caters for about 20% of the population, and that is basically where growth is being taken from. And these are your international investors, corporates, and then you also have your informal economy, which is largely made out of black and especially women. That is part of the informal economy. And these are your amagwinya sellers. These are your people that sells things on the street and all of these. So how do we merge the 2 economies? And when do we get, how do we get one kind of economy? Because in South Africa, we still have 2. We have an economy for the rich and an economy for the poor. We have schools for the rich and we have schools for the poor, which is basically private and public. So how do we marry the 2? I don't know who wants to take that. Adrian, Prince, or I don't know, Struisbaai, are you guys still having technical difficulties? I think, Adrian, how do we marry the 2, since you touched on the issue of informal economy?
Yo, that's a good one. You know, I'm going to give an example, one other example, an experience. One of the biggest problems, and I see this, the opportunity for our small economy or the informal economy to mainstream is the biggest problem in our country. And it needs a shift from the other way, because that is where the support is needed. What is happening is, for an example, if I have a small business, and I'll use an example of a small soda drink. I've invented a soda drink, and I wanted to go mainstream. The cost to get it mainstream is unbelievable. So I am then officially excluded just because I don't have the necessary capital or resources to get my product or my service into the mainstream. A good example is how do I get then that thing onto every supermarket shelf? It won't work for me because I don't have that capacity. I don't have that ability right now. So what happens is the informal economy remains within, I'm going to use this now, within the informal settlements, within places like the Cape Flats. A small spaza shop remains there, and that it doesn't grow. Firstly, and then secondly, because the I would say the big economy continues to grow, the competition is just too much. Like you will never be able to compete unless, and I remember Prince saying, in terms of construction, unless in some way or form government actually develops policy that forces, for an example, a major player to firstly capacitate and then provide the opportunity for the smaller company or the smaller institution to then have a share of that, of that pie. That's the only way. There's no other way. Like it really needs policy, radical policy shifting in terms of getting that access for that small business to get into the bigger, like the big pie, into the big pie. And unfortunately, no matter, like we complain about this corruption and stuff like that. It's this country has created that, unfortunately, because people have realized that it's not going to happen in a normal way. Like, like there's a policy and you go and you get a grant of R1 million, and no, we've had to resort to these underhand tactics, and it's unfortunate because it's frustration of waiting 30 years for that opportunities to be equal. So, and I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying we need to understand that if you're excluded, you'll find ways to be included, and that actually means you have to do shady things.
And I think that's true, and that's where corruption and bribery and all of these comes in. Again, speaking from somebody that works with young people on a daily basis and engaging with young people. For an example, the tender process, and you spoke a lot about policy, Adrian. When it comes to the tender process, a lot of young people don't go beyond CIPC about registering their business. It gets stuck there. When it comes to tender opportunities, it usually goes towards more sustainable organizations, companies, and it doesn't allow actually for young people to startups to get an opportunity, especially at local level. So what do you guys think should be done, especially if I follow the debate and the discussion is democracy in crisis has got a lot to do with the fact that people don't have money, if we can put it bluntly. And if you don't have money, you don't have access to certain goods. So government has produced the BEE policy to ensure that a lot of young black people can come up and take part in the formal economy. But even that has only benefited a certain amount of people, or only politically connected people. So in policy, what do we need to change in order to bring people in to ensure that they get a leg to stand on once they start their business, especially at local level? So what do you guys think in terms of we need to do to ensure that we get young people not only starting businesses, but ensuring that they will get at least a small tender that they can clean a earth or something, so that they can get started, so that they can learn how to work with budgets and just so what do we need to do in terms of policy to ensure that we get people on board? I don't know, Keenan, maybe and then Prince, all of you guys can maybe just add onto that question.
Yeah, no problem. You know what? It has never been easy to get somewhere in life. To start a business is not easy. It's not meant to be easy. You understand? If we expect that the government is going to spoon feed us every step of the way, you are lying to yourself at the end of the day. We as a community, we need to start helping our youth. We need to start telling them, listen here, this is the process. This is what I think our youth council is for. This is the process at which we work on how to register a business, knowing that 10% of all tenders from the municipality needs to go to youth. You understand? I'm just making that's an estimate. So at the end of the day, we need to sit down with these youth. We need to say, do you have a plan? How are you going to do this? We need to teach them how to budget. We need to teach our younger youth, you understand, in order for them to grow within the economy. You understand? Some are some have money in the house, others don't. So we need to go sit with those people that are less fortunate. You understand? So that we can actually empower Cape Agulhas as a whole. Because what I see is people sending tenders, the municipality sending tenders out to people from Cape Town, people from Joburg, to come fix a machine. You understand? And there's enough qualifications going around in Bredasdorp in itself. You understand? There's enough qualifications going around. These people just need to come to the party and say, listen here, I've started my business. Can I please tender for it? So we need to start thinking economically in our municipality. We need to start thinking economically, because how are we going to grow the economy if we don't start at home? If we are still calling let's take South Africa as a whole. If we are still waiting for Anglo-America to come take out our diamonds, to come take out our gold, how are we at the end of the day going to take our economy to a better place? You understand? So I think this needs to start at home. We need to start helping our youth to build our economy. You understand? And that is the only way you build an economy, is to basically go private and even governmental if you have to. You understand? That is why there are two roads. That is why there are two roads. You have your corporate and then you have government. You understand? And you need to choose where you want to fall in, because a lot of the private companies also intertwine with government. You understand? The government puts out a tender for them, they tender for it, they get the money. And that is what it is about at the end of the day. We need to start helping our youth in order for them to understand what it is that they need to do in order for them to get to where they need to be.
Okay, I hear you. So more trainings, more awareness, more webinars to inform youth. I think that's what we're trying to do at Cape Agulhas, especially with the Youth Council, to ensure that we bring voices together and to talk and to educate about these type of things, you know. But in Afrikaans, there's a saying, jy kan die perd tot by die water bring, but you can't die perd laat drink nie. You can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. And I think that's one of the situations that we've been dealing with. And I've been reading this book, and you know, like I don't want to share my political beliefs, but I also believe in socialist policies. And there's this book called The Alternative to Neoliberalism. And one of the things is exactly that, the depoliticalization of young people. We've handed the struggle over. These are type of things that we've been dealing with, you understand? So we need to look at alternatives that we can provide, alternative methods to educate our young people in order to bring them, to make them part of the discussion. I think Adrian and Prince, you guys had your hands up. We almost come to the end. So I would really like us to think now, guys, in terms of going forward. What do we then need to do to move forward? Yeah, maybe just on the first point and then the second point. Prince or Adrian? Struisvy, I just want to find out, is your, just Struisvy, is your connection still a problem? It seems like you guys are still freezing. Okay, Prince, and then Adrian.
No, Renina, I'm so happy with this kind of discussion. You know, it's really opening different views, different opinions, but all centered around one thing, that democracy, politics are all intertwined with economics. It goes back to what I said in the beginning, that politics are about the distribution of resources. And to understand the resources, you need to understand economics and how things are. You know, I come from a town called Queenstown. So in Queenstown, this is where Twiza comes from. So when Twiza started, they had a dairy called Crickley Dairy. Probably people never heard of it, but they said, okay, we've been doing dairy for some time. Let's try a cool drink called Twiza. It was so cheap. It had a high acidity rate, it would burn your tongue. And we said, no, we don't like this flavor. And they refined from the small town. And they grew to be this massive brand that you can even find in Namibia. So when you're talking about the formal economy and the informal economy, the problem with the formal economy, it has reached its peak. It can't go any further. The informal economy, on the other hand, is a powerhouse, but unfortunately, it's not organized. So the informal economy is the future of this country. It employs more people. It's adaptable. It changes. If I buy Twiza, or for example, I'm buying Amagwinya fat cakes from around, if the baking powder is too much, I tell them I don't like them, and they change. They listen to the audience. They know the market. You know, I asked my mother the other day, why do you buy? Because we're trying to find that, because our mothers actually are the ones who are pushing white monopoly capital, because they're buying these brands. Why do you keep on buying Tastic Rice? Why do you buy Ace? Why do you buy, you know, what is this shoe polish? It's not Nugget, Kiwi. Why do you buy it? Tastic Rice expands more, so I can feed more people. Market research, they know why they buy. This is where us as young people now need to tap into the informal economy to understand who buys from us. At a higher level now, government, we need a state bank in South Africa. Because one of the reasons why young people do not have access to resources, because if I am poor, I am in Bredasdorp, I want to start a business, I do not have capital, banks will not give me capital. They'll profile me, you are a young colored, you're a young black person, you stay in a particular area, therefore your business is a risk, you don't have collateral, you're not getting a loan from us. Our banks are risk averse too much. They do not want to take risk. As a result, they are killing our economy. And they are not letting young people enter the market because they're too risk averse. This is why we need a state bank, because government takes, for an example, we've got 17 million people on social grants. And you've got 17 million people on social grants. Government needs to take that money into the banking system, and then banks take money out of that, they benefit out of it, yet they do not want to put the money back into the very same community that they service. So if you have a state bank, instead of you getting a grant via SASSA and Shoprite to buy food, government must have its own food retailers. We get the money, we use the money to buy from the same retailer that government owns. And then that's how we are going to circulate money within to empower the economy. We need alternatives. But unfortunately, the demon of corruption, imagine if we have a state bank, the amount of corruption that we have. This is why young people, because corruption is holding us back. Thank you.
So true. I think you agree with Julius Malema a little bit there, Prince, about the state bank. And I think some of our capitalists that's listening here today would say, what is this guy talking about? But yeah, it's definitely, I think that is a way to go, because 70 million people that are living on social grants, you know. If we can use that money, invest it, create jobs, you know, in your own community, and I think then you can lift a lot of people out of poverty. But I think what government also have done over the years is that they created a certain kind of dependency, because now having 2 or 3 more children is kind of a salary that you can get every month from government without working. So it's some valid points there. Adrian, I'm going to hand over to you, and then I'm just going to give a last round to all of our panelists, just to give in terms of, just to share their views in how do we move forward with this, the conversation, and how do we ensure that this generation fights for, to preserve democracy, to keep the conversation going, to ensure that we bring more people into the conversation. So Adrian, and then last round to all of our panelists.
Thanks, Ranir. You know, I want to go back to that. I think there's a couple of remarks I just want to pull together. One of the key things that I think Prince has mentioned is that democracy is young people. Democracy is young people. Like, as soon as you start voting, it starts at 18. 18 to 35 is the majority of our population. That is the sway vote, really. If you get young people to buy into your manifesto as a political party, you win that election. So basically, I'm saying that then as that main factor in our country, we should then play an active role. It has to happen. We as young people, we need to claim our space, as Keenan said. We need to claim our space as active citizens. We cannot let somebody else create a youth policy for us, for an example. We cannot let somebody else create an economic plan for us, as an example. We should be coming to that decision makers, you know, with this is our proposal, as Prince is saying, in terms of TWISA in Grahamstown. There should be more of that. You know, we should be going to the government and saying, in terms of what is happening in our space, this is what we want to see in the next 20 years as our direction and vision as young people in Grahamstown or in Bredasdorp or in any other poor community, because I'm speaking poor communities now. Because what is happening is it's become a blanket approach to economic development. It's become a blanket approach to social development, as you mentioned, the grants. And it's become a dependency then on government in a reactionary way, not in a proactive way. I keep using this word, proactive. We want young people to actually take data to determine, like, you know what, this is what's happening in Grahamstown. TWISA is here. But as towards a need in terms of, oh no, let's expand that market around Twiza. It's become an international brand. I'm just giving an example. But we don't have that data. And I think that is one of the key things our young people need to be literate in terms of, I'm really inspired by Prince the first time I meet him, and Keenan. And I mean, I know Renier well, that we need to have context about what's happening around us so that we can engage with our decision makers, not with a passion or not with an emotion, but with a decisive level of understanding and incisive data to say that this is what our community needs. So my way forward in terms of democracy, given what's happening in our country right now, is that our young people need to be at the next elections and vote. They need to be at the next IDP meetings and draft that 5-year IDP with that municipality. They need to be at the next budget meeting and advocating for certain policies and projects and programs within the community. That's where I bow down. Mic drop.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I think Keenan, maybe just some summary, just summarize in terms of way forward from your side that we need to think about moving forward.
I think moving forward will be the education of our younger youth, or of our youth, the education in teaching them how economics work, teaching them how to build a business from the ground up, teaching them on what is the next step in our democracy. So teaching them how to view politics, how to not make it a disagreement rather than agree to disagree. You understand? Teach them how to speak within the public forum. Give them the necessary platform in order for them to express themselves. And basically what we need to do is, we need to, like I said, start with ourselves. This is where it all starts. It starts with you. You understand? So if you make the first move and the person behind you sees that this worked, that person will come and follow you. So this is what we are doing. The youth, I think you need to take up your space. Like the Deputy Mayor said, take up your space. Start living and stop just being. Understand? Start living. This democracy is for a taking. This is for a taking for us as the youth. We need to start changing policies. We need to start looking at mandates. We need to start looking at how our country is going to develop in economics. You understand? We need to see that this gets done and gets done in the right manner. I don't know if we can loot out corruption. I don't think that will be possible, because I've heard once corruption is absolute. So given that fact, that corruption is absolute, we can choose as individuals to say no to any corruption. So from my side, guys, take up your space. That is all I can say from my end.
Thank you very much. Just before I hand over to Streisbay and to Prince, I just want to read some last messages that we received. I think this person says, this is from the Cape Agulhas Municipal Manager, Mr. Eben Phillips. Thank you very much for joining, sir. He said that very profound, Keenan. Please share the letter from Zimbabwe as far as possible on social media platforms. A very relevant and valuable lesson learned. Really proud of the youth of Cape Agulhas for embarking on this initiative. Then we have people watching from all the way from Saudi Arabia. I think it's Kuwait. It's Patricia McTavish, and she said, I love that this conversation is taking place. And thank you very much for joining us from that side of the world. Then we have Reino Goliath, who said that good point, Keenan. Government should make that people, everybody get a tender. And then Rowena Martinez just said, people must stop waiting for government to do something and hand out grants. Bugas and Zela. So yeah, Streisbay and then Prince. Any last words, Streisbay? I hope your mic can work. I hope your thing works now. I think Prince, maybe you, and then they're going to write. They're going to type up. Sorry, no, they just sent a message now. They said, Cape Agulhas Youth Council Chairperson, as the Youth Council, we are going to continue informing youth and mobilizing youth to become active in being part of the decision-making process. Awesome. Then, Prince, you're going to have the last word, and then we will just say thank you to everyone. Over to you, Prince.
A beautiful discussion. I'll reiterate, a great and progressive discussion. That mustn't die here. To say, well, we're going to wait for the next Mandela Day and we are going to wait for the then we repeat the same things that we did not. So we need to craft partnerships. Partnerships are the future, particularly if we have the municipality here also. That is your good partner, but as well, young people, we also need to make sure that in order to hold government accountable, sometimes we do not need to be, extensions of government. That way we are unable to hold government accountable. Economics, how do we build an inclusive economy? We need to start having those discussions, and not high-level discussions about SAA, about small communities. Start in our community. How do we start with a radical economic transformation in our own small economies? Politics are about the distribution of resources. Is our democracy in crisis? Our democracy has always been in crisis. How do we manage the crisis is the question that we need to be asking, that we have in our communities. A great discussion all around, but one that I would hope will not die here. I'm waiting for a follow-up to this discussion. I'm waiting for a paper, someone who can write to say, this is what my suggestion is. How do you feel about it? I'm to meet other councils as well, other youth councils as well. I've got access to youth councils in Namibia. What young people want to do in Namibia, the Seychelles, Mauritius, Mozambique. I've traveled a lot. I've been part of YALI as well. So I love young people who have a spark. And then when we have that spark, we connect with other young people to make sure our communities change. We come with practical solutions that other people can also see that these things do actually work, so that we bring formidable change, not just talking, but formidable change. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm running out of data bundles now, English. But anyway, that a great discussion indeed.
Thank you very much, Prince. Yes, it shouldn't end here. And I think, Prince, you also adding to what was going to be one of my suggestions was if we can maybe link this also with the Activate Change drivers and to get more young people, more young voices on board, and maybe see how we can connect, form partnerships so that we can duplicate some of the projects, some of the stuff that we do in our own different communities, see what works. Can we maybe have a next session where we share some practical examples of what we're doing to ensure that we promoting democracy? And I definitely think we will work on that. We will share, maybe we can have a collaborative event with more partners to take the discussion forward and to make sure that we implement what we say and it's not just a talk shop. So I'm just going to call quickly one of our youth council members, Gracia Pasafi, that has been taking notes and making some, and just sending the notes to me just to come and do the official, just to say thank you to everyone that joined the discussion. So Gracia, she will be joining us now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This was a very fruitful discussion and I also enjoyed it. And I just want to say thank you for our chairperson, deputy chairperson, Adrian Kearns from Open Up, Keenan and Prince Charles, and also to our viewers who tuned in. Special thanks to you guys, and we hope to have a lot of these conversations in the future. So thank you.
Apologies. I just want to say thank you very much to all of the panelists, and again, to our viewers at home, and to everybody that participated, shared questions, and also we had some great insight from young people. And this just proves that we as young people, we can lead, we can make the change that we want to see, but it all depends on, like Keenan has been saying a lot, it starts with you. And I want to say, guys, let's continue the conversation. Let's mobilize, let's organize, let's educate in our communities. And to reiterate what Prince has also said, politics is not just party politics, but it's about the distribution of resources. Get involved. Part in your ward committees, take part in the structures in your communities, your street committees. Go sit in council meetings, read about what opportunities are out there, stay informed. You know, let's start organizing interest groups in our communities to ensure that we take the fight forward, so that we know. You can see the beautiful baby from Adrian there, because it's not only for us that we are doing it, but it's also for them, and it's for their generation that we are doing it. So thank you very much. Special thanks from my side, and a special thank you to the municipality for allowing the space to share and live stream this discussion. And I hope people can go afterwards and go watch it again and maybe add some comments, maybe some of the stuff that we missed out. And a special thanks to the vet who availed himself on a Sunday to live stream the event. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. And I hope we're going to have another discussion. I think we're going to discuss offline. Activate Change Drivers, the project team, the Cape Agulhas Municipality, Youth Council, Open Up, and various other organizations will come together and see what practical solutions we can find to our current situation or the current problems that we're facing. So from my side, adios amigos, until we see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.